Pat McAfee didn't hesitate. The moment Shedeur Sanders' post-game mime act went viral, McAfee was already calling it a masterstroke, modern quarterbacking for the media age. To him, Sanders wasn't mocking the press. He was playing chess while everyone else was still setting up their pieces. Meanwhile, Rex Ryan exploded on TV, calling it disrespectful, immature, and a disaster for team culture.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And that right there is the divide. Two generations of football clashing over a viral clip. One side sees brand building. The other sees a meltdown. It started after Sanders was passed over for the Browns' starting QB job in favor of Dillon Gabriel. Instead of giving the usual canned response about helping the team, Sanders showed up to the podium and pantomimed his answers. No sound, just exaggerated gestures and silent reactions. It felt like satire, but it was also a very clear signal. I'm still here, and I know how to be heard. The clip hit social media like wildfire. Sanders, who hadn't thrown a meaningful pass in weeks, became headline material overnight. Suddenly, analysts like Ken Dorsey were being asked to weigh in. If the team's cool with it, it's survivable. But let's not pretend there aren't risks. Because this is the NFL, where hierarchy matters and third-string QBs aren't supposed to hijack the spotlight. Especially not with theatrics. Dillon Gabriel, in comparison, gave a short, polite answer about being ready when called. It wasn't exciting, but it was exactly what decision-makers want to see from a new starter. Sanders? He's out here leveraging every ounce of his last name, his following, and his viral savvy to make sure no one forgets him. The Deion Sanders legacy looms large, but so does the question. Is Shedeur banking on that legacy, or building something of his own through moments like these? McAfee seems to think it's smart. In today's NFL, personal brand does matter. Teams aren't just evaluating tape, they're watching how players move online. But there's a fine line between being magnetic and being a distraction. Rex Ryan clearly thinks Sanders crossed it. Loudly. The stakes are high. If Sanders gets another shot and plays well, the mime moment becomes part of his legend, a media stunt turned turning point. But if he fizzles out, that same clip becomes the remember when moment in every future breakdown about wasted potential. There's no safety net here. This isn't college anymore. Sanders is either rewriting the playbook on what a modern quarterback can be, or writing himself out of the league entirely. The NFL has seen its fair share of drama over the years: explosive trades, locker room blow-ups, ego clashes on live TV. But what happened with Shedeur Sanders might be one of the most polarizing moments of the season, and somehow, it didn't involve a single word. No interception. No touchdown. No post-game tirade. Just a mime. Shedeur Sanders, third-string quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, turned a routine press conference into a viral masterclass in silent defiance. After being asked about his role on the team and Dillon Gabriel's recent promotion to starter, Shedeur didn't answer. He performed. He mimed confusion, zipped his lips, shrugged dramatically, and walked off. That clip? It spread like wildfire. The reactions? Immediate and extreme. And the league? Caught in the crossfire of old-school football values and the content-driven reality of modern sports media. Pat McAfee didn't hesitate. On his show, McAfee praised the move as a bold, brilliant troll job, calling it a top-tier moment of media savvy. He described it as a performance, not a meltdown, and gave Shedeur credit for knowing exactly what he was doing. For McAfee, this wasn't just trolling, it was strategic communication, especially in a league where being third on the depth chart means you rarely get screen time. And when you do, you'd better make it count. McAfee's take boiled down to this: Shedeur played the moment perfectly. But not everyone agreed. Rex Ryan, in full Rex Ryan fashion, absolutely lost it. His response on national television was unfiltered, loud, and predictably furious. He slammed Shedeur's mime act as disrespectful, selfish, and career-threatening. He warned that antics like this could cost a player trust, team respect, and eventually, their spot in the league. To Rex, quarterbacks don't play games in press conferences. They answer questions. They lead with their words. They don't go viral, they stay focused. Rex wasn't just annoyed. He saw it as a threat to NFL culture. And he made sure the whole world knew it. And in that moment, the split became undeniable. This wasn't just a Shedeur story. It became a flashpoint for the generational divide in professional football. McAfee saw creativity. Rex saw chaos. And caught in the middle? Shedeur, who suddenly found himself in the center of one of the season's most unexpected debates. Then came Ken Dorsey. Unlike Rex or McAfee, Dorsey didn't go to either extreme. His reaction was more measured, but just as telling. Dorsey focused on what really matters in situations like this: the locker room. He made it clear that if Shedeur's behavior isn't upsetting his teammates, then the outside noise is just that, noise. Because in the NFL, team harmony is sacred. You can go viral, you can trend, you can even annoy a few analysts on ESPN, but if your quarterback room is still intact and your teammates still trust you, the controversy doesn't have legs. That's what makes this story so complex. Shedeur didn't violate any rules. He didn't bash a teammate, he didn't go rogue on social media, and he didn't throw his helmet or quit on a play. He simply chose a different way to respond to a question. And that different way broke the internet. And depending on who you ask, it either made him a marketing genius or a walking red flag. What no one's arguing is this: Shedeur is under pressure. And not just any pressure, the kind that comes with legacy. Being the son of Deion Sanders means carrying a last name that's synonymous with swagger, attention, and expectation. Shedeur has lived his entire football life under a microscope. Every step he takes is measured against the primetime standard. And for better or worse, he's inherited the media spotlight that comes with it. That spotlight? It cuts both ways. The upside is obvious: recognition, relevance, and the ability to stay in the conversation even when you're not on the field. The downside? Every move becomes a referendum. Every action, even a silent one, gets dissected from every angle. And that's exactly what's happening now. Some NFL insiders are reportedly concerned that Shedeur's mime stunt could be seen as a distraction, a signal that he's more focused on content than football. They worry that this kind of behavior could sour front offices who prioritize traditional leadership qualities: stoicism, humility, discipline. But there's another group, growing louder, that sees Shedeur's move as a calculated brand play, a signal that he understands where the game is headed. In an era where athletes are expected to manage their own PR, social media, and personal narrative, Shedeur's viral moment wasn't a misstep. It was a pivot, an attempt to stand out, gain leverage, and take control of his visibility. Because let's face it, being a third-string quarterback is a thankless position. You're a heartbeat away from irrelevance. And if your only job is to stay quiet, hold the clipboard, and wait for an opportunity that may never come, then you better find another way to stay relevant. And Shedeur? He found one. But there's a risk. And it's real. If Shedeur's teammates start to see his content-first approach as a distraction or ego trip, he'll lose the locker room. If coaches start to feel like he's more interested in clicks than chemistry, they'll move on. Because in the NFL, no amount of marketing potential can save you if you can't operate within the team culture. That's why this debate is so volatile. It's not about whether Shedeur has talent. It's about whether his approach is sustainable in a league that still values quiet professionalism, especially at quarterback. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, the man who actually got the starting job, is doing everything right. He's not chasing headlines. He's not jumping into memes. He's focused, serious, and saying all the right things. His message was simple: be ready. Stay humble. Do your job. That's what teams have historically rewarded. That's the mold most quarterbacks are expected to follow. But here's the kicker: Gabriel isn't trending. His quote didn't go viral. No one is debating whether he changed the media game. And that's where Shedeur has the advantage. He may not have the job, but he has the spotlight. And in the NFL of 2025, that might be just as valuable, at least in the short term. Which brings us to the broader question: is the NFL ready for players like Shedeur? Because like it or not, this is where the game is heading. Content is part of the business. Players are influencers. Branding is currency. And if teams don't adjust, they're going to miss out on a new kind of athlete, one that's not afraid to play the game and the algorithm. Shedeur Sanders is a test case. If he navigates this successfully, if he earns trust, keeps the locker room, and maybe even works his way up the depth chart, then he won't be the last to pull a move like this. But if this backfires, if he gets benched, labeled, or quietly pushed out, then the message to the next generation will be loud and clear: stay in line or stay off the field. The NFL has a decision to make. Not about Shedeur specifically, but about what kind of league it wants to be. One that fears content, or one that learns how to embrace it without compromising the game. Either way, Shedeur's mime didn't just go viral. It made a statement. A bold, divisive, unforgettable one. And now the league has to answer. So let us know where you stand. Was Shedeur Sanders ahead of the curve or out of line? Is this the evolution of the quarterback brand, or a step too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more weekly breakdowns of the biggest media meltdowns, sports culture shocks, and viral moments turning the NFL into the greatest reality show on turf. Because if this is the new playbook, we're just getting started. What Shedeur Sanders did wasn't random. It wasn't reckless. And it definitely wasn't accidental. It was targeted, tactical. The kind of move that doesn't just spark debate, it forces it. When he stood on that podium and refused to speak, literally choosing miming over answering, he wasn't just dodging a question. He was delivering a message. Not just to the media, not just to the Browns, but to the entire NFL. That message? You're not in charge of my narrative. I am. And for a third-string quarterback? That's unheard of. That level of control over the conversation is something typically reserved for the Mahomeses, the Allens, the Lamars. Not the backup's backup. But Shedeur isn't just another name on the roster. He's Dion's son. And that alone means his presence comes with gravity. But what he did with that weight, that's what made this explode. Let's not forget the context. Dillon Gabriel had just been promoted to starter. A huge moment. He earned it. He gave the league what it wanted: calm, confident humility. He said he was ready, that he'd been working, and that he was honored to lead the team. It was textbook. And it was immediately overshadowed. Shedeur didn't interrupt the moment. He hijacked it. His silence became louder than Gabriel's words. His gestures, more viral than Gabriel's stat lines. And within hours, the storyline had completely shifted. Gabriel was the starter, but Shedeur was the story. And that's where the old guard started panicking. Because that kind of narrative power, that doesn't sit well with the NFL's traditional power structure. Especially when it's wielded by a player who hasn't earned it on the field. To the old-school crowd, this wasn't innovation. It was insubordination. That's exactly why Rex Ryan went nuclear. He didn't just criticize Shedeur, he unloaded. Called it childish. Called it toxic. Accused him of putting himself before the team. And under all that rage was a familiar fear that the position of quarterback, the sacred, no-nonsense, do-your-job role, is being turned into a brand opportunity. Rex's meltdown wasn't really about Shedeur. It was about control. About the kind of player the NFL has historically built itself around, and the kind of player it might be forced to embrace in the future. That's what this mime moment cracked wide open. Because this isn't about one press conference. It's about a shift. A slow, uncomfortable shift in what it means to be an NFL quarterback in the age of content. And here's the part that makes it even messy. Shedeur might actually be right. Yes, his move was provocative. Yes, it was risky. But it was also effective. He used a media platform not to answer questions, but to generate conversation. He turned 5 minutes of non-speaking into a week of non-stop commentary. And in a league where staying visible can be just as important as staying sharp, that's not a stunt, it's a survival strategy. Especially for a third-string quarterback. Because let's be real, third-string QBs are usually invisible. They don't get mic time. They don't trend. They're one injury away from relevance, but until then, they're background noise. Shedeur flipped that dynamic. He said, if I can't play, I'll still perform. And whether that performance earns him a starting job or lands him on someone else's depth chart, it's keeping him in the conversation. And in today's NFL, That's half the battle. But again, it's not risk-free. NFL teams are watching. Executives, scouts, coaches, they're all looking at this moment and asking, is he worth the attention? Not just because of talent, but because of culture. Because locker rooms are delicate ecosystems. One offbeat move can fracture trust, even if it goes viral. That's why Ken Dorsey's perspective matters here. While everyone else argued over whether Shedeur was a distraction or a genius, Dorsey brought it back to one thing: the locker room. Does the team respect him? Does the room buy in? Is there harmony? Because if the players are fine with it, if the QB room isn't tense, if the wideouts aren't eye-rolling, if the coaches aren't annoyed, then all the noise outside the building doesn't matter. But if there's even one crack in that foundation, then Shedeur's silence could echo a little louder than intended. That's where things get real. Because all the media clout in the world won't save you if your teammates stop believing in you. And this is where the Dillon-Gabriel contrast becomes even sharper. Gabriel isn't flashy. He's not viral. He's not turning press conferences into performance art. But he's winning over the locker room. He's leading with humility. He's giving the staff everything they ask for. And in the NFL, that consistency is gold. So now you've got this strange dynamic. Gabriel has the job. Shedeur has the buzz. Gabriel is executing the system. Shedeur is questioning the system. And the Browns, like the rest of the league, are watching closely to see which approach actually works. This story isn't just about ego. It's about evolution. It's about how the NFL is adapting, or struggling to adapt, to the fact that players are no longer just players. They're content creators, personal brands, public figures with direct access to millions of fans. And the league, built on control, isn't built for that kind of independence. Which is why Shedeur's mime moment was so triggering. Because it didn't just break protocol, it bypassed it. It proved that players can shift the conversation without league approval. That they can become the headline without throwing a touchdown. And that's terrifying to the system. Because if more players follow that model, if more backups learn how to stay relevant without playing, then the power dynamics begin to shift. Media no longer belongs to the stars. It belongs to the savvy. And Shedeur? He's incredibly savvy. He's not just playing football. He's playing media football. And in that game, going viral might be more valuable than a preseason completion percentage. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still a lot that can go wrong. If Shedeur doesn't perform when given the chance, if he doesn't back up his antics with production, then the same media cycle that built him up will rip him apart. That's the double-edged sword of attention. You don't just get the headlines, you get the pressure. And in the NFL, there's nothing harder than earning a second chance once teams label you as a distraction. So yes, this is a high-wire act. One wrong step and Shedeur could fall off the depth chart entirely. But if he keeps his teammates on his side, if he keeps the coaching staff just curious enough, if he manages to translate all this buzz into real opportunity, then this could be the blueprint for a new kind of quarterback journey. Not the one that starts with perfect combine stats or a quiet rookie season, but the one that starts with a viral clip and a refusal to follow the script. Either way, Shedeur Sanders just forced the league to ask some uncomfortable questions. Can you lead without conforming? Can you build a brand without compromising the locker room? Can you mime your way into the history books? We'll find out soon enough. But one thing's certain, whether you love it, hate it, or don't know what to make of it, you're talking about it. And that means Shedeur Sanders is already winning the part of the game that most third-stringers never even get to play. There's a reason this story isn't fading. Because what Shedeur Sanders did isn't just memorable, it's disruptive. The NFL doesn't like disruption. It prefers order, hierarchy, predictability. It wants the third-string quarterback to act like the third-string quarterback. Be quiet. Be grateful. Blend in. But Shedeur did the opposite. He grabbed the mic, then refused to speak into it. He flipped the entire dynamic with body language and timing. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. He didn't get emotional. He just stopped playing the game, and suddenly he was running it. That's what stings for a lot of old-school minds in the league. Shedeur didn't just challenge expectations. He outmaneuvered them. Without a touchdown. Without a snap. without saying one word. And now, the NFL has to deal with the fallout. Not just from Rex Ryan's rant or McAfee's praise, but from the deeper cultural tension this moment has exposed. Because players have always been told, let your play do the talking. But what happens when the opportunity to play never comes? When you're stuck behind two quarterbacks, buried on the depth chart, and the only way to stay relevant is through moments like this. For Shedeur, the mime wasn't defiance. It was survival. And yes, it's a gamble. If he flames out, this moment will be used as evidence. A cautionary tale about ego, distraction, and chasing clout. But if he holds the line, keeps the locker room, and eventually earns playing time, then this will be remembered as the moment he broke through. Not on the field, but through the noise. And that's the game now. In a league obsessed with narrative, sometimes being talked about is more important than being seen on the field. And Shedeur knows how to stay talked about. So what happens next? That depends on the Browns. On whether the staff embraces the attention or gets nervous. On whether teammates view him as a spark or a spotlight chaser. On whether he can stay focused and continue to earn the platform he's built. But what's already clear is this. The NFL can't ignore this type of player anymore. Players who understand that football is entertainment. That performance happens on and off the field. That silence, if used well, can speak louder than stats. So drop your take in the comments. Did Shedeur go too far, or is he exactly what this league needs? And is the NFL ready to evolve, or about to push back even harder? Tap that subscribe button if you're here for the chaos, the clashes, and the quarterback controversies that don't start with interceptions, but with a mime. Because the playbook just changed, and Shedeur Sanders didn't need to say a word to make it happen.